Well, thank you very much. Thank you, first of all, for the very kind of introduction. Carolyn, thank you for everything that is going on at the Greater Waco Chamber of Commerce, which is fabulous, and we'll be talking a lot about it. Before I do, I also want to take a moment to express my gratitude for the state representatives who are in attendance with us today. They have been working overtime. If you know, we're at the Baylor football stadium. And imagine if, you know, after completion of a full game, you go into overtime and then a second overtime. And who knows, there may be a third or fourth overtime. Who knows what's coming? But they've been working long and hard and, as I will recount, have provided tremendous success, legislation that will improve the state of Texas for a long time. So if you would, I know you're recognized, but I want to call out your names again and have you all stand up. We got Representative Curry, Representative Orr, and Representative Cook. I think I saw over here, right over here. Thank you all for being here. I have on my list Senator Birdwell, but I do not think he's here. But I'll go ahead and give it up for Senator Birdwell, who's been doing a fabulous job. A privilege that I've had during my tenure as governor, including even going back to when I was the Attorney General. I've had the opportunity to work with so many tremendous leaders right here in the Waco area. And I want to thank Judge Felton, Mayor Holmes, and Sheriff McNamara for everything they do to represent your community and the great work they do with me in my office. I also know that there are many city as well as county leaders here of different positions. As we will go through some of these things, there's proof in the pudding about what they are delivering for the Waco and McLennan County area. They make it a whole lot better. And so if you are a local official in any way, would you please stand and let us thank you for your service to this great region. Before I get into some of the details of my comments, I will make an observation that in a way relates to what I want to talk about. And the observation is one that you all experience every single day. So to get here, I drove up I-35. So you know where I'm going with this. So I-35, among other things, is under seemingly perpetual construction. I began first attending college back in I shouldn't say this, but back in the mid-1970s. Driving I-35 at the time, and I-35 was under construction at that time. It remains under construction today. That said, here's the point I wanted to make with you, and that is Texas is blessed with so many resources that we have the largest road building fund of any state in the United States of America. We just announced last week we have a road building fund of $146 billion to build out the transportation infrastructure across this state. I was telling this to a fellow governor, the governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia. Told him how much that we were spending on transportation here, and we were having dinner, and he dropped his fork and he took a second look at me and said, "How much did you say?" And I repeated, he said, "What you all are spending on roads in the state of Texas is more than the entire budget of the Commonwealth of Virginia." And we will continue to make sure that we use those resources to build out the infrastructure that is needed to meet the growth that we have in this state. But one thing I really wanted to start with was to congratulate everybody in this room for the great success that you have delivered for your community economically. Let's just, 2025 obviously is not yet complete, but look at the complete year of 2024. Waco hit a record high for the total number of jobs. Waco hit a record high for the total number of Texans working. And get this, Waco has a faster rate of growth of employment from June of last year to June of this year, faster than Austin, Houston, and Dallas. You can see that Waco is one of the substantial economic engines of the great state of Texas. especially when you get down to the details of the Chamber of Commerce. It is a Chamber of Commerce that I personally, as well as my office, work with closely. The person in my office who works most on economic development projects is the head of that in the governor's office, and that is Adriana Cruz right here. Adriana, why don't you please stand up? So last year, the governor's office and its economic development team worked with this chamber on at least 3 economic development projects. And already this year, you're off to a great start where we are working on at least 3 more economic development projects, and the year is not yet over. That success is a testament in part to the ingenuity, the drive, and the determination of everybody in this room who are making Waco and this entire region a tremendous economic success. Give it up for yourselves and your fellow members for everything you're doing. And I think we all know that success like that doesn't just happen overnight. It's an aggregation of what's happened over years. And you can see that in a way because of an anniversary that you all celebrated. This has been in the works for tireless years of effort for now 125 years. Because last year, the Waco Chamber of Commerce celebrated its 125th anniversary. Congratulations on 125 years of tremendous success of transforming the entire Waco region. This region is increasingly a key part of the Texas economic juggernaut. Texas ranks #1 in the United States of America for the most new jobs added. Texas ranks #1 as ranked by CEOs who run businesses as the best state for doing business for 21 years in a row. Texas ranks #1 for economic development projects. Is defined in a way that it leads to what's called the Governor's Cup. The Governor's Cup goes to the state that ranks #1 for those economic development projects. And not only is Texas the national champion in that, Texas has been the national champion for economic development for 13 years in a row. And you all are part of that. Those economic development projects I spoke of earlier, those are all tallied and aggregated in Waco and Austin, Houston, and Midland, and all towns across the entire state to see which state comes out on top. And one reason why Texas has ranked #1 for those 13 years in a row is because we have the best local level economic development teams of any state in the United States of America, and you are a driving part of that. So thank you for what you've done to lead to Texas winning those Governor Cups. We also rank #1 for exports, not just now, but Texas is ranked #1 for exports for the past 23 years. And some of those exports are coming from right here in the Waco area. When you add up all this economy together, it leads to Texas having an annual gross domestic product of more than $2.7 trillion a year. Now, it's a number. Let me give you context for that number. There are only 7 countries in the world that have a gross domestic product larger than Texas. The United States, obviously, China, India, Japan, the United Kingdom, Germany, and France. And we are closing in on catching up with France, and one of these days, maybe here pretty soon, there may only be 6 countries with an economy larger than Texas. So what we've been able to assemble here in this state is enormous, and it redounds to the benefit of every man and woman who calls Texas their home. And importantly, we did a whole lot during this last regular session to bolster our #1 standing for business. We expanded business courts. We focused on codifying the business judgment rule. We limited derivative action lawsuits. We expanded the research and development franchise tax credit. We expanded career training. And important, so important to the future, of businesses in particular, but every man, woman, and child who live in the state of Texas. We dramatically expanded the power available on our power grid. One thing that some people still have in the back of their minds is what happened in 2021 when we lost power for a while. What a lot of people do not know is how we responded to that challenge by restoring resiliency in the power grid and increasing the amount of power available. Since that failure in 2021, no Texan has lost power because of any deficiency in the Texas power grid ERCOT. There may be at the local level some power lines down because of heavy wind or a storm or something like that, but the grid itself has remained perfect since 2021. And as some mathematical examples, since 2021, Texas has increased the power available on our power grid by 25%. Texas now generates more power for our state than the second and third states combined, to give you an example of how much power we have. Because Texas ranks #1 in the United States for more power generation than any other state, that is perhaps the reason why all of these AI data centers are coming to Texas. The AI data centers need access to power. And because Texas has it far more abundantly than any other state, we are the home of AI data centers. What that means is Texas is going to be the home of the future of artificial intelligence, because as those massive AI data centers get built out, they will soon be connected with these hyperscalers and then the innovators that are going to lead to the advancement of artificial intelligence, which will be the leading driver economically in the entire world in the coming decades. So the power is very important. Something else that goes along with it, whether it be for those AI data centers or candidly for any business, and definitely for every home, when you go to your faucet at home and turn it on, you expect water to come out of it. And as we all know, with the growth of the population, with the growth of businesses in our state, especially the businesses that are demanding a lot more water, we need access to a lot more water in the state. This session, I made an emergency item, and the legislature delivered on that emergency item where we made a generational investment in water. $20 billion investment in water for the future of Texas. Half of that will go to increase new water sources. The other half will go to repair water infrastructure that's aged and broken and defective. This is amazing when you think about it, that in this state, we're currently losing hundreds of billions of gallons of water because of broken, busted, and inefficient existing water lines. Just repairing those lines alone will deliver more than 100 billion gallons more of water to your tap every single year. But importantly, provide the water that's needed for these new businesses to continue to come here, knowing they're going to be able to access the water and the power to succeed at a lower cost level than they would in other states. Well, something else that we did this session is we prioritized small businesses. You know, we think of large businesses and all the Fortune 500 company businesses we have and things like that in the state, and that's true and it's good things to brag about. What's important for people to know is that about 98% of all businesses in the state of Texas are small businesses, and they employ more than half of all the Texans that help Texas rank #1 for the most new jobs. So my point in telling you that, and that is, small businesses have an extraordinary, powerful role in ensuring the economic success of our state. In turn, we wanted to pass laws this past session to make sure that it's going to be easier for those small businesses to be able to succeed here in the state of Texas. So I created, but before the session began, I created the Texas Small Business Freedom Council. The goal of this was to reduce barriers for small businesses to make it easier for them to conduct business. To put it in one level of context, this is eliminating regulatory red tape. Regulatory red tape increases the cost of doing business. We've got to cut through that to lower the cost of doing business and speed it up to make it easier for those businesses to succeed. One way we did that is by passing the Texas version of the DOGE law to cut through regulations in the state of Texas that were hindering small business. What it ensures is that Texas will continue to move at the speed of business. The reason why I say continue, I'll give you a quick example of how we operate and what it's done to transform the state of Texas. In 2020, Elon Musk came to me and said he wanted to create a more than mile-long gigafactory that would be larger than the size of the Pentagon and start from beginning to end and have vehicles rolling off that gigafactory in less than 18 months. I asked, have you ever tried to build a house in Texas? We can build a house in 18 months. It's pretty fast. The deal is we worked with them. We worked on cutting through the red tape, the permitting process, all that kind of stuff to make sure that we would move at that speed of business. And at a time before he had bought Twitter, he posted on Twitter after it was done that in Texas he was able to build this mile-long gigafactory and have vehicles roll off of it in less than 18 months, whereas in California he would not even be finished with the permitting process yet. We seek to achieve that same measure of speed for every business in the state of Texas. Another thing we did for small businesses is that we increased the business personal property tax exemption. Before this session, the personal property tax exemption goes to taxes that apply to tangible things that you have in your business. It could be tables and chairs, it could be computers, it could be a desk, different things like that. And the first $2,500 of that was exempt from that business personal property tax. Well, that's kind of, as nice as that may be, kind of meaningless. It's not a lot of money. And so we wanted to increase it to substantially help, especially our small businesses. So we increased that personal business property tax exemption from $2,500 to $125,000, helping make it easier for small businesses to make a profit in the state of Texas. We also addressed a complaint that many businesses had, and that is we expedited the business record searches and filings at the Texas Secretary of State's office. We made permanent the veteran-owned business franchise tax exemption. There are so many veteran-owned businesses. Texas is the #1 state for veterans. And many of these veterans, when they leave the service, they want to come here and start a business. And we want to encourage that and aid them in the process. One thing that we had done is we provided a business franchise tax exemption altogether for veterans, but it expired this year. And we not only wanted to extend it, we wanted to end it. And so we made that exemption permanent forever for veteran-owned businesses in the state of Texas. Another thing we did, and this is one not enough people really know about. One thing that we've seen definitely in the aftermath of COVID, but also just see increasingly because of the advancements of technology, is that there's more and more people who are running business from their own home. They don't need to go to a building downtown or anything like that. They can make a profit and make a good living just running a business from their own home. We wanted to make it easier for them to do that. So we passed a suite of laws that largely prevent cities from imposing regulations on most of the businesses that you run from your own home. Get regulations off your back, let businesses run from home, earn a profit easier and faster. Another thing that we did was to address one of the leading concerns that we hear from businesses, but also a primary issue and function for the state of Texas. One thing that all of us, doesn't matter if you're in business or if you're just a mom and dad at home or just someone who wants to see Texas improve, we all want to see improvement in educating our kids. And we took greater leaps this session to achieve that than ever before in history. Now, one thing that you read and heard a whole lot about is what we did for school choice. And we passed school choice in a very meaningful way, ensuring that parents are going to have the ability to choose the education pathway that is best for their child. But know this, school choice was not an end unto itself. It was a means to a larger end. During the process of advancing school choice, I became the first governor in the history of Texas to talk about a new vision. Go back to ways in which I began my remarks. I talked about all these ways in which Texas is number one for jobs, for exports, and stuff like that. And I'll be honest with you, if I kept talking about the ways Texas is number one, and that's all I talked about, I could talk another 15 minutes. Bottom line, we're number one in a lot of ways. However, before now, no governor has ever talked about a new number one. I believe Texas should be number one in educating the children of our great state. School choice that injects competition is part of that process. And I look at it and I see Doc Anderson, your former state representative. Doc, thank you, sir, for your service to the great state of Texas. But to go back and put all the pieces of the puzzle together. So school choice ensures competition, ensures that parents who have 3 or 4 kids, for one of the children, the local public school is going to be the best pathway. For another child, charter school is going to be the best pathway. Another child, homeschool is going to be the best pathway. Parents know better than anybody else what's the best pathway. But for us to really go down the pathway of being number one, we also needed to fully fund our public schools, and we provided an all-time record high of more than $8 billion more to fund public education in the state of Texas this past session. Another thing along those lines, a priority along those lines, if we're going to be number one in education, we have to be able to attract and retain the best teachers. Teachers are fundamental to a quality education, and we provided an all-time record pay increase of more than $4 billion for our teachers to make sure that they're going to stay in our public schools and continue to do a good job and attract the best and brightest teachers. And the last is better curriculum. We have to double down on mastering reading and math. If you can master those 2 topics, you're going to excel at every other subject. So putting all this together is going to put Texas on a pathway to climb the rankings. And know this, with the report from 2025, we've already begun the climb. If you look at the test assessment results in the largest 2 school districts in the state of Texas for 2025, Houston Independent School District, Dallas Independent School District, there were measurable improvements in academic success in those schools. Also in Waco ISD. If you look from the immediate aftermath of COVID 2021 through 2025, you improved from 41 to 50% proficiency. That's not where you want to be, but it shows that you're moving in the right direction here in Waco. We're not going to be satisfied in Houston or Dallas or Waco or Pecos or any other place in the state of Texas until we have every ISD, every child in every region climbing the ranks of success for their own personal success, which will lead to the aggregate success for the entire state, ranking Texas number one for educating our kids. We also focused on the topic I heard the most about, and that is addressing property taxes. Let me tell you what we did in the regular session. We used $50 billion to reduce property taxes. The reason why I put it that way, for those who don't know, Texas does not assess property taxes. There's no state property tax. All the property taxes are at the local level, the largest of which is the school district property tax, and then you have city and county, some other jurisdictional property taxes at the local level. So it's not like we can go to Austin, Texas and say, we're going to cut the Texas property tax rate. There's not a rate for us to be able to cut. So what we have to do instead is to use money to try to reduce the property tax burden that you're dealing with. And we did do that in 2 ways. One is we increased the homestead exemption. When I became Well, first, the homestead exemption is, it exempts a certain value of your home that otherwise would be subject to property tax, and says that for that amount, you don't have to pay any taxes on that amount for your school property taxes. When I became governor, that amount, that exemption, was $15,000. When we finished the session, it was increased from $15,000 to $140,000. The first $140,000 value of your home will not be subject to a school property tax. If you're a senior, which it looks like there's none of those in the room today, but if you were a senior, that exemption is $200,000. Mathematically speaking, if you look at all the seniors' homes across the state of Texas, it means half of those seniors will pay zero in property taxes on the school district component of property taxes, which is the largest component. The other half of the money that we used to address property taxes was to actually buy down or reduce the property tax rates assessed by your local school districts. And know that when we reduce those school district rates, it's not going to mean that they're not going to get the money. It means that they're going to be getting the money from the state of Texas as opposed to taxing you. Basically, we're paying your share of those taxes as opposed to you paying it, meaning the schools will still get funded. It's just that you will not be paying those taxes. And as you may have heard, we're looking to do even more here in the special session, which is ongoing, and we'll see what we can get done in the special session to further address property taxes. Speaking of the special session, let me mention one last topic. One thing that we are wrapping up in this special session is addressing the catastrophe that occurred just before the special session began. And that is the tragic floods that swept through all parts of Texas. There most prolifically was on the Guadalupe River in that region of Texas. It's in Kerr County largely. But listen, there were massive floods all the way from Tom Green County to Georgetown to Austin area and parts in between. And we needed to respond to all of it. And one thing that we have done, we've passed several laws to ensure that all communities are going to be better prepared to deal with dangerous flash floods. One thing is to improve early warning systems. Another is to improve camp safety for children. Another is to provide relief funding for these communities. There were tragedies, the most horrific of which is a parent losing a young little girl swept away in the middle of the night. And there's no way you can say anything, no way that you can fund anything that will replace that loss. But what we can do is to dedicate ourselves, as those parents requested us to do, to ensure the loss of their daughter's life was not in vain. And I will be signing laws later this week that achieve the goal that was requested by those parents to ensure camps in the future for children. When parents drop their child off, they will know with greater certainty their child will be safe from any potential disaster. Aside from the stories of extraordinary grief, there are also stories of extraordinary heroism. You may remember videos of what I'm about to recount for you. And that is in the early morning hours, even before the sun came up on July the 4th, and as the sun rose, you saw helicopters rescuing people out of trees. You saw swift water boats and other operations taking place on the water, in the water, and on the banks of it. State agencies such as, whether it be the National Guard, the Texas Department of Public Safety, Texas Task Force 1, agencies like that, together, they rescued and evacuated more than 1,000 people from harm, saving lives. The first time I went down there was later on July the 4th, talking to people in the community. And they were stern, they were resilient, they were strong, and they said, listen, when waters rise in Texas, so do we. And we get together, we unite, and we work together to ensure we're going to take care of each other and rebuild our communities. And that's exactly what's been taking place with extraordinary resiliency. We're rebuilding not just Kerrville, but also Georgetown, San Angelo, and other places across the state. So you can understand there's an approach that we take whenever we deal with mass disasters like this. Number one priority is to save lives, protect lives, and stabilize lives. Once we do that, we get into restoring communities in the rebuilding process, and that includes stabilizing a community and then going through the debris removal process so we can situate them in a way they can rebuild. Then we prioritize what we are going through, almost complete on right now, and that is to help every person who lost a primary residence have that home rebuilt. This is happening in part because of the extraordinary generosity of our fellow Texans. I don't think I've seen a response that provided as much donations as I have in response to this. More than $100 million has been raised to help these families deal with the challenges they face. And there was an announcement that we made 2 weeks ago where almost $50 million has either been directly handed to or is in the process of getting its way to every homeowner who had a primary residence there, harmed in any way. Could have been a total loss or could have just had an inch of water in it. Everybody whose primary residence got damaged is going to have their homes rebuilt, and they are being rebuilt as we speak right now to get them back home as quickly as possible. Of the more than $50 million that's left remaining in that fund, they want to set aside a meaningful part of it to make sure they are going to be able to address the extraordinary and the unique mental health care needs of the families who've gone through a tragic event. And then the remainder is going to assist local businesses with a focus on small businesses, be able to rebuild and get back into the process of doing business. They need aid just as much as homeowners do. And we look to expedite the process to make sure that small businesses are going to have the resources they need to get back up and running again, to get the economy of Kerr County back up and running again. Bottom line, we will stop at nothing to save those lives, to rebuild that community, and to restore business as usual in Kerr County or any other area across the entire state affected by those floods. But going back to you all, I want to say thanks again to the Greater Waco Chamber of Commerce and all the many businesses represented here today who make Texas such a great place to do business. Thank you all, God bless you all, and God bless the great state of Texas.